Hey y'all, welcome to the channel or welcome back. So today we are going to be talking about what is going on. There is a lot happening in the world constantly. There are changes that are happening, changes that will continue to happen. And a lot of people are going to be impacted by this, heavily impacted. And you never know what's coming. So we wanted to prepare to the best of our ability. Now, I was having a conversation with my cousin about a month ago. He is in the service right now. He is actually in the Army. He actually went away. He's based in North Carolina, but he traveled to another state and was there out in the woods about a month training and helping the other guys do something. I can't exactly tell you guys what it is because I can't remember, and I don't want to give too much information away about that specifically. But I will go ahead and say I wanted to kind of get his input on what was going on, because there was a possibility that we might have been going to war because, you know, the strikes and everything. So I wanted to get his perspective on it. And he brought something to my attention. He said, you know, everybody's worried about World War III. And I'm like, well, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's going to happen? And he was like, yes, but not in the sense that everybody's expecting. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Because quite honestly, I think when you hear about wars and world wars, that's always a tongue twister for me. You tend to think about, you know, bombings and, you know, missiles and weapons and things like that causing mass destruction. But he brought it to my attention that it's not going to look like that this time. If we are to go to war, he really feels like it's going to be more on the cyber side, like the cyber attacks that we're going to be seeing, you know, grid down situations where people are attacking the power grid. And keep in mind, the power grid is already, it's already hurting, right? Like, it's not up to par where it should be. There's always been an issue for as long as I can remember. Before I was born, like the infrastructure, even, you know, on the highways and roads, there's just a lot of upgrades that need to happen across, you know, the United States in general. So we're going to look at, you know, cyber attacks, you know, hackers and things like that. And you know that medical systems and medical, you know, hospitals have had these attacks happen, you know, ransomware and things like that. You know, grocery stores have had situations. Most recently, Whole Foods was without, you know, without cold items and certain items in their store because they couldn't order due to cyber attack. Power grids. So he thinks there's going to be attacks on power grids. And you guys remember there have been blackouts. I remember there was one in New York City, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say it was like in the early 2000s or 2001, 2002. It might have been around that time period where I remember New York City being completely like, there was like a blackout. I don't remember how long it lasted. Was it like a day or two? Was it 48 hours? I don't know. You guys might be able to help me down in the comment section below if you guys remember that. But again, blackouts can happen everywhere. And you know, we're already experiencing blackouts, brownouts, and things like that just because there is such an overload on the system in its entirety. There are power companies that will roll out messages to their customers, you know, telling them to conserve energy, and even have rolling blackouts where they are informing the people, like say from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., you know, you won't have electricity on this day. And that's all in an effort to conserve power and not weigh down the power grid system, because they are trying to prevent like actual blackouts. Because, you know, if you have actual blackouts over more of a controlled blackout or brownout, then you don't know when that system is going to come back up, versus if they control it, they have a little bit more leeway, should I say, to control, you know, the situation. It's almost like a controlled burn type situation. You know, you have your wildfires and then you have your controlled burns. So one can get out of hand and one is more in a controlled and people are watching it. So that's kind of like the situation when it comes to like power grids. So he thinks that's what we're going to be seeing more, and I completely agree with him. And some of these things have already started happening, and you want to be prepared as much as possible. And I want to go ahead and preface this by saying, please make sure that you are keeping cash on hand. I know a lot of people feel about cash. I know we rely on debit cards and, you know, Apple Pay and things like that, but please make sure you have cash on hand for a grid down situation or any type of power outage. And again, we're in hurricane season. There are going to be snowstorms later on this year. There's so much happening in such a wide variety of reasons as to why we can be without power. So don't just carry about, you know, 20, 50, you know, $10 bills. Make sure you have smaller denominations. You have your $1 bills, your $5 bills. Make sure you have those on hand, change even. And keep it in your car, like keep a stash on you in your home, wherever you have a safe spot. Make sure you're keeping those bills on you, because you don't want to be in a situation where you may need gas, for instance, and the gas station is only taking cash and you only have a car. You know, there are just so many reasons to prepare. And I'm saying this to say not that we can't have, you know, missiles and other things that take place, but we have an amazing military service that, you know, serves and protects us as a nation. And so they have the capability to intercept and things like that. So I wouldn't worry about so much like that, you know, nuclear attacks and things like that. Again, anything is possible and we do have to stay vigilant. But again, I would worry about more so the everyday things that can affect us. Even like our water supply, like water treatment facilities can be, you know, impacted, and there can be cyber attacks and hacks. So with this being said, I want to get a little bit more into it, and I'm not going to hold you guys up too long. So just stick with me. Make sure you're trying to grow your own food. And I know I get a lot of comments saying like, you know, soil is expensive, seeds are expensive, like garden beds are expensive, and these things are expensive. It can be expensive as you make them, but there are also stores like Dollar Tree where they sell seeds, and you can get seeds from Dollar Tree, you can get seeds from Walmart. And depending on your finances, if you're struggling and having a hard time, you guys, like EBT can cover those things, like, you know, your seeds and your trees and things like that. So that can help, you know, offset your costs that you have to do out of pocket. Now, soil, you don't, you know, you're going to have to buy your soil, but I think Dollar Tree still sells soil. And I'm not saying that's going to be the best quality soil, but you want to be trying to grow as much as you can, you know, on your budget. And space is another issue, but again, grow vertically. Even bags, I think you can grow right out of the soil bags. If you're worried about trying to save money for pots and garden beds, you should be able to bust open that bag and put everything in. Now, depending on what it is and the roots and stuff like that, be aware of that. If you have extra totes or anything like that, you can grow out of totes. You can grow out of tubs. If your child has a toy box maybe that they don't use anymore, drill some holes in that and use that. We kind of have to get creative now with what you're doing, because it's either we depend solely on grocery stores and what's going on, and there have been a lot of workers that are no longer working in the fields because they have been deported. So you don't know how that's going to affect us as things progress throughout the year, as far as, you know, supply chain and being able to get those fruits and veggies on our tables. Make sure you have board games on hand, like the old school classic. I mean, checkers, chess, Monopoly, things like that, card games, you know, dice, things like that, to pass your time should there be a grid down situation, so you won't get bored, so your kids won't get bored. It can pass away the time, especially if you don't have, you know, your electronics. So many people are hooked to their electronics nowadays. They're lost without them. Not only that, but make sure your kids are in the habit of not relying on electronics and TV. Make sure they can crack open a book. Make sure they're good with coloring or doing crossword puzzles or word searches and playing those board games. That way, you know, if you have a power outage, even if it's for a few hours, they're not losing their mind because they don't have access to a video game or don't have access to a cell phone and things like that. Also, make sure that you're keeping up with your prescriptions and make sure you're filling those prescriptions. If you have insurance that will cover you a 90 days worth of prescriptions, make sure you're doing that. There are also medical companies that have prescriptions or medications that you can get from them as well. Again, do your own research, because you never know what will happen. Prices are going up on everything, and prescription medications are actually facing an increase. And prescription medications are already so expensive. So many Americans have issues paying for their everyday prescriptions anyway. So that's just another thing that you want to think about and consider. Make sure you have vitamins on hand. We are coming up on cold and flu season here just in a couple of months, and you want to be prepared and stocked as possible, even for supply chain and, you know, disruptions that may occur. You want to be prepared and prepped as much as possible. There is no way we can be 100% prepped at all, and I wouldn't stretch yourself out to the point of worrying, because worrying ain't gonna get you nowhere, and you don't need the added stress. So I will say, do the best that you can do. Make sure that you have at least a little bit in every area, a little bit of food, a little bit of water, a little bit of over-the-counter medications, natural medications, whatever it is that you use. If you have, you know, shirts or a pair of pants you like, get a couple of extra shirts, get a couple of extra, you know, undershirts and socks and things like that. There's a lot of things that you can control, and there's a lot of things that you can't control, you guys. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys, pray if you pray. If you don't pray, I really don't know what to tell you. And just remember, like, there are just some things that are not in our control, you guys. There are just some things not in our control, no matter how bad you want to control them. You can't change everything, and there's just certain things you cannot do. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Take care, stay safe, and I will see you guys in the next video.